What makes a good tutorial? This is a question that has been on my mind quite a lot as of late, and so I'm going to try and answer that today through some ramblings while working on another project in this Minecraft survival world that I have begun playing in. Just goes to show how little I know about this shader pack, because I am not sure whether it is day or night that we're going into. I think it is the sun is setting on us, and so we shall retreat inside. Perhaps do a little mining. Let's see. Day-night cycle's like 10 minutes, so I have some time to go down into the mines. So what's got me thinking about this question of tutorials and teaching is revisiting Paul Soares Jr.'s old Minecraft Survive and Thrive series. This was a lot of people's gateway into learning how to play this game. It was posted on the official Minecraft website for a while, if I remember correctly, and it was basically the best guide that there was to learning how to actually exist within this world. And having gone back and watched it again myself, I think that there are a lot of things that it does well that I don't really see in other games. And I kind of want to bring some of those things to light today and discuss why I think that matters. I've actually brought myself a note sheet. I scribbled down some thoughts to hopefully keep me better on track this time. I want to talk about this because I have sort of always been a teacher in some capacity for my life. I was a merit badge counselor at a scout camp for a while. I was also a mentor in the makerspace at my local university while I was there on sort of a work study. And that involved teaching people how to use rapid prototyping equipment and other machines, which is not an immediately intuitive process, as surprising as it is. It does take a little bit of skills to understand how 3D printing works. One of the things I think that makes me a strong teacher is my ability to recontextualize instructions and skills and knowledge into sort of different layers of abstraction. And when I say a layer of abstraction, basically what I'm talking about are, I couldn't find like an official Merriam-Webster definition of layer of abstraction, but it's basically, it's defined in Wikipedia as a way of hiding the working details of a subsystem. That's sort of a very convoluted definition that has a lot of big words in it. And so the best way I can give you an example is like, you don't know how every transistor in your computer is working at any given time. I'm also just realizing this is not favorable for digging down at all. Wow, okay. This cave might be a project for another time. But you're not thinking about the individual firings of a CPU in a computer. You're not even thinking about like the tasks that are loading into the operating system or any of that. You're just focused on the immediate consequences of those actions. As far as abstraction goes, when you play a game like Minecraft, or in my case, I've played for quite a while and I've developed the neural circuitry that helps me play this game, I'm not thinking about the individual key presses that I have to take in order to accomplish a task within this game. My brain has a vague sense that W will move me forward and S will move me back, to the point where the movement keys are all sort of a combined task that's just running in the background, and I'm not giving much thought to it. It's to the point where a lot of the time, like, my brain doesn't go through the layer of abstraction of thinking of what keys I need to push in order to do the thing. This is a concept that applies to any technical skill, or really any skill at all, that people don't really think about when they're teaching. They have students who still need to kind of overcome the gap of translating their actions into, you know, actions within the software. And that's not really a trivial gap all the time to overcome. It takes some time. I saw a post somewhere that was sort of talking about like how the average tutorial within a video game is not all that helpful. And I'm trying to figure out what to do here, but it's not like I don't have a good way out. But a lot of game tutorials assume prior knowledge of whether it's using a computer, playing within the game engine, playing games before, so on and so forth, right? Minecraft at least tells you, you know, WASD to move your mouse around to face different directions, but like that sort of has to be explicitly stated, because somebody who's never played a game before isn't going to have that precursor intuition of like, this is typically how I'm going to navigate throughout this space. Game theory has already done a very good video sort of covering what it looks like to non-gamers when you're trying to teach them how to play a game. Abstraction is kind of the core concept that they talk about in that video, but they spend a lot of time just talking about like, okay, if you were to have somebody who's not really familiar with gaming, what would be the first game that you would want to start them with? I don't know if Minecraft would necessarily be my first choice, but I'm not really here to discuss what my first choice would be. Dear Lord, there's just water everywhere. But they sort of talking about how it's like, first you have to get them familiar with like using controls and translating that into motion and like understanding that the actions you take in the real world have consequences in the game. So the idea for this came into my head while I was teaching somebody how to use a lighting console and walking them through how to enter lights into a programmer, how to change data and all that stuff. And this thought sort of popped into my head, communicating the underlying logics to somebody instead of just verbatim giving them instructions. For my particular experience, if we're discussing in the context of Minecraft, you could tell someone like, okay, press W until you approach this block, then press space, and then keep holding W. You can give them those verbatim instructions that are like, here are the direct actions you need to take in order to do what I'm trying to do. And in the case of like a lighting console, a lot of that is like, okay, hit this key, type 219 through 29 whatever, and hit store and then press a blank space. And there's a difference between giving an instruction like that and, for example, being like, okay, record a new group in the console. Or in Minecraft, it would be like me saying, okay, go harvest some wood for me, or go looking for seeds, which I think is what I'm trying to do. Because my goal is to, there's Enderman. My goal is to build some sort of farm and sustainable food source, because that is a common early game Achilles heel for me when I'm playing this game. Somebody's not really going to know, okay, where do I get seeds from? Well, you have to go click on bushes. Well, how do I move around? There's a lot of underlying mental framework that we don't really think about because it's just become second nature to us. But to somebody who's never played a video game before, like I often think about applying these concepts to like my parents or my grandparents or something. They don't have that underlying mental framework of maybe even how to move about in a virtual 3D space. I think that one of the things that Paul Soares Jr. does very well in his Survive and Thrive series is give people this underlying circuitry. There's a lot of moments throughout where he is discussing, press this key on your keyboard, press the I guess the inventory key used to be I. If you press I, it'll open up your inventory. And then if you right click on this particular object, it will give you half of that amount of stuff. And there's a lot of examples throughout his tutorials that very much to a Minecraft veteran feel repetitive and kind of like, yeah, move on, we know this already. But to a non-gamer or somebody who is picking up Minecraft for the first time, like that's incredibly helpful knowledge to have if you don't have computer skills. And so I think about that a lot, especially in the context of education in the modern day. I'm sure it's no mystery. I mean, all of us are kind of clued into, dare I say, shortcomings of the public education system. I mean, I certainly was one of those in the sense of it's being mismanaged, and we're seeing a lot of kids being raised with little to no computer skills. That's very interesting to me because, again, I'm having to like temper my lived experience versus that sort of situation. Because for me, I'm the kind of person who, if I can't figure something out, like it's a pretty hard design software or tool that I'm trying to use. I've intuited my way through a lot of programming and through a lot of software. I would say most of my experience in computer-aided design and 3D modeling is just kind of like self-taught intuitive learning. But that's not a skill that everybody is able to apply or everybody necessarily has the desire to apply. I'm trying to find some water here so I can make an infinite source. I have this idea in my head of like a multi-tiered farm kind of sticking out of this. Like, I don't know what kind of mushrooms they are, but they stick out of the sides of logs and they look like kind of big balconies or terraces and multiple things. And I feel like that would be kind of a cool design for a farm. But ultimately, I think there are a lot of people, especially nowadays, that don't understand the underlying systems or the lower layers of abstraction that kind of surround us and are necessary to our everyday lives. A good example was a story my coworker told me when he worked in IT of getting a call from a lady who was insistent that her computer wasn't turning on. And so he's like, okay, we'll check that it's plugged in. And she's like, yeah, I can check that it's plugged in. Let me just get my flashlight. The power just went out. If you're of a technical minded generation, you'll understand kind of the absurdity of that statement. But a lot of people don't understand the underlying concepts behind why a computer works the way it does. And so far as like needing electricity. I think that this is a common trait, and it's something that is very foreign to me, given I was the kind of kid who was always asking my dad's questions about like how the internet worked and how technology functions and how all of this stuff is manages to deliver us information. But there are people who don't think about that. I read a post somewhere that talked about a lady being like, I can't connect to my home Wi-Fi. And okay, well, can you walk over to the router and like look on the back of it? And she's like, well, I can't. I'm not home right now. But again, that's like to the technologically minded people, it's kind of like a goofy little like, aha, what an idiot. One philosophy I try to have is I can never fault people for not knowing something that they were never taught, would have never stumbled across in the first place. Because ultimately, when you're born, you kind of don't know anything. I think that in my opinion, like I've encountered certain young people who are a little bit harder to kind of teach technical skills to, because stuff like, save a file, open a file, that is an instruction that is at a higher level of abstraction than people are used to. You can't tell them like, okay, if you move your mouse up to the left-hand corner of the screen and then click, a menu will appear. And if you lower down, they might require all of those verbatim instructions because they haven't put together the mental circuitry of like, okay, the act of clicking save as, typing in a name, selecting where I want it, and then saving the file, like that's a whole set of processes, like a whole long instruction that they might not have correlated to those actions yet. To kind of bring home the point that I was going for there, it's like, a good tutorial is something that takes into mind the fact that all of this might be foreign to people who have never actually played the game, who don't have the connection of WASD is how I move and my mouse is how I look around. And in the case of Minecraft, like if I left click a block, I can interact with any of these blocks as I want. And I can choose which blocks I want to interact with. I can break them. I can place them. I can do all sorts of things to affect the environment around me. So that's my deep thought for the day over. I kind of want to get to sorting out this mountain infrastructure because I have the idea of having this kind of like wooden deck. I'm a fan of high alpine decks, stuff you'd see on après ski huts in like the Alps, given I've only been to the Alps one time, but that is, to me, the first time I've ever taken a look at mountains and been like, oh my God, those are mountains. Because I have lived almost my entire life in proximity to some like larger mountainous areas. Going to Switzerland and just seeing the sheer elevation changes is the first time I've ever found mountains that make me like pause and go, okay, yeah. But I'm thinking something like this is pretty decent. So I've been playing on that older Minecraft server, and one interesting change that I forgot that Fences endured was that the recipe used to just be 6 sticks in a line. And I understand why it had to change. I mean, you couldn't do all this cool, like these different woods. You couldn't do as many block varieties, but still it's a lot more expensive because you obviously get a lot of sticks from 4 logs. So I'm thinking something like this. And then I like to build with stone bricks personally. I think it's a nice looking block, and it's usually in plentiful supply because all you have to do is smelt cobblestone, which everybody has by the billions, with coal, which again, everybody has by the billions, and charcoal works just as well. You get the same fuel value from a charcoal, and all you need for that is wood. As for like the circular nature of this, there's handy tools on the internet you can go to that'll generate you a circle made of pixels. And I'm just going to use one of those real quick. I'm going to pull it up on my other monitor. I'm going to be basing the geometry of these little platforms because I don't want to make them too big. But effectively, when you place down a water source block in Minecraft, the water will flow up to 4 blocks in any direction. Or no, I'm so sorry. The water will irrigate farmland up to 4 blocks in any direction. If I design these circles to only surround one source block, I'll need a circle of diameter. If I use a circle with a diameter of 11, that'll be enough space for source blocks. It's not really a perfect circle, but I suppose it's better than nothing, and as close to a perfect circle is about as the best we can do. So I think we'll say that that's the middle, or this is the middle here. So just following my guide on my other screen, and that gives us this nice kind of like area here. I'm going to make a couple of slabs to kind of help frame things. And slabs are good because they allow you to cover an area for a lot less material cost. But it's also going to give me a little bit of a variety to kind of the curvature on the bottom of this platform. And then I want to make this stone, and then we'll go to our normal stone. What that does is it kind of adds this a little bit of intrigue to the bottom of this platform. As you can see, we get kind of that there's just layers to it. It's pleasing to the eye in my case. I would go so far as to argue. Basically, I could go to the center of the circle. And so if I know that this is my center block here and this is roughly my center block here, this should theoretically be where I can place the water. And so now I should have 4 blocks in all directions. This single water block here will irrigate an entire circle of this diameter of cropland. The slab there, just because I can put a torch on it and still have the water run. This is one of my favorite changes that Minecraft has made, is the ability to waterlog slabs, just purely because farming is a lot more easy and convenient with that change. I'm going to reference old Minecraft a lot just because it's a project I'm actively working on right now with a couple of buddies. Did you know that in old versions of Minecraft, you couldn't go on farmland without sneaking? And so if you even just walked across your farmland, your crops would trample, and it made harvesting just this very tedious, annoying chore. Like, it'd take forever because you have to, sneak around your entire plot lest you lest you trample your crops. So if we're talking about good tutorials, the way you do farming in Minecraft is you make a hoe, which is crafted with 2 sticks and then 2 of your tool material. In my case, I'm using cobblestone because it's cheap. And it's a bit very Paul Soares Jr. explanation, but you go up to a piece of dirt like this and you right-click on it with the hoe, and it turns into tilled earth. You can see this is what I'm talking about in the sense of this is irrigated farmland. It grows crops a little bit faster. It spreads out 4 blocks in any direction. So if this is my point source, I get 4 blocks of irrigation to the edge of the circle. So this entire area can be irrigated with just that source block. And I think I'm going to just have it follow the contour of this wall because it adds a little bit of intrigue to it, and I've actually gotten a little bit too far away from my water source. These aren't going to spread. But yeah, it just adds a little bit of shape intrigue, I would say. It makes it a little bit more interesting to look at, especially because I just have in my head the ambition of building several of these floating islands, and this kind of being our little de facto base of the valley, if I can even speak English correctly, which on a good day usually I can. I seem to have just picked like the wettest mountain in all of Minecraft to construct this base at. I have settled, quite frankly, the largest aquifer that I think I've ever seen in this game. Like, holy crap. And so going back to that layers of abstraction thing, like, I can say if you smelt cobblestone into stone, you might not understand that smelting involves, putting it into right-clicking on a furnace block and putting the item in the top and so it's just one of those kind of general concepts where as soon as you start thinking about things in terms of its layers of abstraction, it's just like you can't stop. It's just everywhere. Everywhere you look, it's just more layers of abstraction built on top of each other that create this modern world we happen to live in. For this particular part, I think it'd be neat to step up the stone, kind of like make a retaining wall like this, and basically have it like holding back the earth behind it. I think it's a particularly cool effect, especially on like mountain. It adds a little bit of depth, but it might even be necessary just given the position of this aquifer. But I guess what would occur to me is that this would be a really great place to farm because we can just pull water from underneath here. Yeah, okay, I think I understand. Because we could just turn all this into farmland and like the water to irrigate it would literally be right underneath. Also, I'm a man of principle. I like me circles, and I will protect them with all of my being. So let's see, that's... Such inconsiderate guests interrupting me whilst I'm in the middle of constructing a farm. I get to have my leisure time as well. It seems we've run out of smooth stone to build this retaining wall with. All right, home stretch. Just need a couple of more blocks and we should be able to finish up this retaining wall. And look, we got this nice kind of nice little like multi-tiered garden with a deck. Do you start with wheat seeds? Well, I mean, you don't start with them, but they're the easiest to obtain. But you just plant them on soil like this, and over time they will, see that one just random ticked. They will get taller until you have a full wheat plant you can harvest. And then from there you make bread, and bread feeds you not as much as steak does, but slightly more reliably as far as like obtaining it, because you don't have to go out looking for creatures in order to get wheat. But there you have it. Some ramblings on what makes a good tutorial, how we learn things, layers of abstraction, and a nice little place to grow some crops to boot. So thanks for joining me this time. Looking forward to the next time I see you. Take care.